The fluorescent lights of Seoul General Hospital flickered as Kang Min-ho stepped through the emergency room doors, blood staining his crisp white shirt. He'd been shot protecting his territory, but the bullet wound meant nothing compared to the earthquake that struck his chest when his eyes landed on her, the woman he'd loved and lost 5 years ago, now standing before him in a doctor's coat, her curvy figure outlined beneath the sterile fabric, her dark skin glowing under the harsh lights. Nia froze mid-step, clipboard clattering to the floor as their gazes collided. Time stopped. The world narrowed to just them. And in that impossible moment, something ancient and unbreakable reawakened inside Minho's chest. A hunger, a need, a claiming so visceral it threatened to destroy him. She was here. She was real. And she was his. Welcome to Unfold Korean Stories. Please like, share, and subscribe. Don't forget to comment where you are watching from. This story is entirely fictional. All characters, names, and events are imaginary. Mr. Kang needs immediate attention, the paramedic announced, wheeling the gurney through the automatic doors. Nia's training kicked in before her emotions could catch up. She moved forward, professional mask sliding into place even as her hands trembled. Gunshot wound to the left shoulder. Get me a trauma bay now. Minho's dark eyes never left her face as the medical team surrounded him. 5 years. 5 years since he'd watched her walk away, convinced she deserved better than a man who lived in shadows and blood. 5 years of searching for her in every crowd, every face, every dream. Nia. Her name fell from his lips like a prayer. She flinched but didn't meet his gaze. Save your energy, Mr. Kang. You're losing blood. The trauma bay erupted into controlled chaos. Nurses cut away his expensive shirt while Nia assessed the wound with steady hands that betrayed nothing of the storm raging inside her. She built a life here in Seoul after leaving him in New York. Medical school, residency, a fresh start where no one knew about the dangerous man who'd owned her heart. But now he was back, bleeding on her table, looking at her like she was oxygen and he was drowning. The bullet still lodged near the clavicle, she announced to her team. We need to stabilize him before surgery. Start in 4, 2 units of O-negative. Minho's hand shot out, gripping her wrist with surprising strength. Don't leave. I'm not going anywhere, she said quietly, finally meeting his eyes. The intensity there stole her breath. It was the same look he'd given her the night they met. Possessive, protective, completely overwhelming. She'd been a medical student doing volunteer work in a New York clinic when armed men had burst through the doors. Minho had been there meeting with someone, and when bullets started flying, he'd thrown himself over her body without hesitation. That single act of protection had spiraled into 6 months of the most intense, passionate, dangerous relationship she'd ever known. Then she'd discovered what he really was. And she'd run. The surgery took 3 hours. Nia's hands moved with precision, removing the bullet and repairing damaged tissue while her mind spun with impossible questions. Why was he in Seoul? How had he found her? What did this mean? When she emerged from the operating room, exhaustion clinging to her like a second skin, his second-in-command was waiting. Park Jin-woo looked exactly as she remembered: sharp suit, sharper eyes, loyalty to Minho absolute. Dr. Amara, he said, using her full name. The boss will recover? Yes. He'll need rest and physical therapy, but he'll make a full recovery. Jin-woo nodded. He'll want to see you when he wakes. It's not a request. His tone was respectful but firm. You know how he is about you. Her heart clenched. Yes, she knew. Minho's devotion had been absolute, overwhelming, sometimes terrifying in its intensity. He'd looked at her like she was the only real thing in his violent world. When she'd left, she'd done it to save herself from drowning in the darkness that surrounded him. But seeing him again, touching him, knowing he'd been shot protecting what was his, it awakened everything she tried to bury. Later that evening, after her shift ended, Nia found herself standing outside Minho's private room. He'd been moved to the top floor, entire wing secured by his men. Because of course, even injured, Kang Minho commanded an empire. She pushed open the door quietly. He was awake, sitting up despite doctor's orders, dark eyes tracking her every movement. You came, he said, his voice rough from intubation. I'm your doctor. I have to check on you. You're more than that. He paused. You've always been more than that. Nia busied herself checking his vitals, avoiding his gaze. Your blood pressure is elevated. You need to rest. I've been resting for 5 years. His hand caught hers. 5 years of searching. 5 years of missing you so much I couldn't breathe. And now you're here in my city, and you think I'm going to rest. Seoul is my city now, she said, pulling her hand away. I built a life here. A good life, far away from guns and violence and men who. Men who what? His voice sharpened. Men who loved you enough to let you go? Men who respected your choice even when it killed them. She turned away, blinking back tears. You didn't let me go. I ran. There's a difference. And I let you run because I thought you'd be safer without me. Minho tried to sit up further and winced. I was wrong. You're not safer. You're just farther away. The vulnerability in his voice undid her. This was the Minho only she had ever seen. The one who existed beneath the cold mafia boss exterior. The one who'd held her tenderly, who'd whispered Korean endearments, who'd looked at her like she was his entire world. Why are you in Seoul? She asked quietly. Expansion. The Korean syndicates needed organization. I came to broker peace. His jaw tightened. But that's not why I stayed. Minho. I have people watching you, Nia. Have had them watching since you arrived 2 years ago. He caught her shocked expression. Did you really think I'd let you disappear completely? That I wouldn't make sure you were safe, protected, cared for? Anger flared hot in her chest. You had me followed? I had you protected. His voice turned dangerous. Do you know how many threats I've eliminated before they could reach you? How many men I've destroyed for even looking at you the wrong way? That's not protection, that's obsession. Yes. The single word was absolute. I'm obsessed with you. I've been obsessed since the moment you looked at me without fear. Since you touched me like I was worth saving. Since you made me feel human for the first time in my goddamn life. Nia's hands shook. She wanted to be angry. Wanted to maintain her distance. But seeing him vulnerable, injured, still looking at her with that devastating intensity, it broke something inside her. You can't just walk back into my life, she whispered. I never left it. Minho's eyes burned into hers. I've been here in the shadows making sure you had everything you needed. That scholarship that covered your final year? That was me. The research grant? Me. The apartment with the view you love? I own the building. The room spun. No, I earned those things. You did earn them. I just made sure the right people noticed. He paused. You're brilliant, Nia. You were always going to succeed. I just cleared the path. She sank into the chair beside his bed, overwhelmed. Why? Because I love you. The confession was raw, honest, completely devastating. Because even if you never come back to me, even if you hate me forever, I need to know you're okay. That you're happy. That you're safe. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I left because I was afraid. Afraid of your world. Afraid of losing you to violence. Afraid of how much you loved me. He finished softly. I know. I saw it in your eyes every time you looked at me. It terrified you how deep it went. It still does, she admitted. Minho reached for her hand, slower this time, giving her space to pull away. She didn't. I can't promise you safety. My world is dangerous. But I can promise you that I will burn it all down before I let anyone hurt you. That you will always be my priority. That I will never take you for granted. The next morning, Nia was making rounds when her colleague Dr. Kim Jae-won approached with a knowing smile. So the infamous Kang Min-ho is your patient, he said casually. Interesting. Nia's spine stiffened. He's just another patient. Right. Just another patient who has the entire top floor secured. And looks at you like you're the only person in the room. Jae-won leaned against the nurse's station. Everyone's talking about it. The great Kang Min-ho, brought down by a beautiful doctor. Dr. Kim. Have dinner with me, he said suddenly. Tonight. Let me show you that not all men in this city are dangerous. Before Nia could respond, the temperature in the hallway dropped 10 degrees. She turned to find Minho standing behind them, against doctor's orders, dressed in hospital scrubs, his injured arm in a sling. His expression was arctic. Dr. Kim, Minho said quietly, his voice carrying lethal intent. I suggest you step away from my doctor. Jae-won paled. I was just asking her to dinner. I heard. Minho moved closer, and despite his injury, danger radiated from him in waves. She's busy. Mr. Kang, you should be in bed. Nia interjected, stepping between them. His eyes softened when they landed on her, but his jaw remained tight. Not until Dr. Kim understands that you're not available. I can speak for myself. Then speak. Minho's gaze never left Jae-won. Tell him you're not interested. Tell him you belong to someone else. The possessiveness in his voice should have angered her. Instead, it sent heat flooding through her veins. Minho, this isn't appropriate. Neither is another man asking out my woman. The hallway went silent. Nurses stopped mid-step. Other doctors turned to stare. Jae-won backed away slowly, hands raised in surrender. I didn't know she was taken, he stammered. My apologies, Mr. Kong. After he fled, Nia grabbed Minho's good arm and dragged him toward his room. What is wrong with you? You can't just. Can't what? He stopped walking, forcing her to face him. Can't claim what's mine? Can't make it clear that you're off limits? I'm not yours. You've always been mine. His free hand cupped her face with devastating gentleness. From the moment you touched me, you became mine. And I've been yours just as long. His thumb brushed her cheek and Nia's breath caught. This close, she could see the exhaustion in his eyes, the pain he was hiding, the absolute truth of his words. You're going to tear your stitches, she whispered. I don't care. I care. She guided him back toward his room, hyper-aware of every point where their bodies touched. You need to rest and stop terrorizing my colleagues. He wanted to take you from me. He asked me to dinner. Same thing. Minho allowed her to help him back into bed, but his eyes never left her face. I can't watch other men look at you, Nia. I can't pretend I'm okay with it. I've spent 5 years imagining you with someone else, and it nearly killed me. Her hand stilled on his blanket. There hasn't been anyone else. His sharp intake of breath told her everything. What? There hasn't been anyone since you. The confession spilled out before she could stop it. I tried. God knows I tried. But every man I met I compared to you. And they all fell short. Minho's good hand tangled in her hair, pulling her closer. Nia, don't. She pressed her fingers to his lips. Don't make this harder than it already is. You're injured. I'm your doctor. This is inevitable, he interrupted, his voice rough. It's always been inevitable with us. A few days later, Minho was cleared for discharge. Nia had carefully avoided being alone with him since their confrontation, assigning other doctors to handle his follow-up care. But when she arrived for her evening shift, Jinwoo was waiting in her office. He's asking for you, Jinwoo said without preamble. I'm not his doctor anymore. You're more than his doctor and we both know it. Jinwoo's expression was serious. Dr. Amara, I've known Minho for 15 years. I've seen him survive things that would break other men. But when you left, he shook his head. I've never seen him that destroyed. He put on a good front, stayed ruthless in business, but inside, you took something vital when you left. Guilt twisted in Nia's stomach. I had to go. His world was killing me. And living without you was killing him. Jinwoo stood. I'm not telling you what to do, but he's in the penthouse suite at the Shilla Hotel. And he's waiting for you. That evening, against every instinct screaming at her to stay away, Nia found herself in the elevator of Seoul's most exclusive hotel. The penthouse required a special key card, which Jinwoo had pressed into her palm with a knowing look. The doors opened directly into the suite. Floor-to-ceiling windows showcased the Seoul skyline, but Nia barely noticed. Minho stood by the window, his injured arm still in a sling, wearing dark slacks and a white shirt that did nothing to hide his powerful build. You came, he said without turning. I shouldn't have. But you did. He finally faced her, and the raw emotion in his eyes stole her breath. Because you feel it too. This pull between us. It never went away. Nia clutched her purse tighter. I came to make sure you're following doctor's orders. I'm not. A slight smile played at his lips. I'm drinking whiskey, working too much, and spending every waking moment thinking about you. Hardly conducive to recovery. Despite herself, she moved closer. You're impossible. I'm in love. He set down his glass. There's a difference. The words hung between them, heavy and undeniable. Nia's hands trembled as she set down her purse. Minho, we can't. Why not? He closed the distance between them, careful of his injury. Give me one good reason why we can't try again. Because you're still dangerous. Because your life is still violent. Because you're terrified of how much you still love me. He finished, his voice dropping to something intimate and devastating. Because you know that if you let yourself fall again, there's no coming back. You'll be mine completely. That's exactly why, she whispered. His good hand cupped her face, thumb tracing her cheekbone with exquisite gentleness. I would never hurt you, Nia. I would die before I let anything hurt you. You can't control everything. No, but I can control this. He leaned closer, his breath warm against her lips. I can choose you. Every day, every moment I can choose you. And I'm asking you to choose me back. The kiss was inevitable. His mouth captured hers with a hunger that had been building for 5 years, and Nia melted into him despite every rational thought screaming at her to run. He tasted like whiskey and need, his hand tangling in her hair as he deepened the kiss. She gasped against his mouth, her hands fisting in his shirt. This was madness. This was dangerous. This was everything she tried to escape, but it felt like coming home. Minho walked her backward until her legs hit the couch. His eyes burned with barely contained desire as he looked down at her. Tell me to stop and I will. But Nia, if you let this happen, there's no going back. You'll be mine. Completely. I've always been yours, she admitted, her voice breaking. Even when I ran. Even when I tried to forget. I've always been yours. The confession broke something in him. He lowered himself over her carefully, mindful of his injury, and kissed her with a reverence that made her eyes burn. His hands roamed her curves with possessive appreciation, whispering Korean words she'd learned meant beautiful, mine, forever, fade to black. Later, tangled in silk sheets with the Seoul skyline glittering beyond the windows, Nia traced the bandage covering Minho's wound. The intimacy between them felt both familiar and brand new. 5 years of longing compressed into a single night that had changed everything. I should go, she whispered, fear creeping in. What if this was just physical for him? What if he'd gotten what he wanted and would push her away? Minho's arm tightened around her waist. You're not going anywhere. Minho, I love you. He turned her to face him, his eyes serious. I've loved you for 5 years. I'll love you for 50 more. This isn't just passion, Nia. This is everything. But old fears died hard. The next morning, when Minho was in the shower, Nia dressed quickly and slipped out. She told herself it was to avoid complications, to maintain professional boundaries, to protect her heart. The truth was she was terrified. By the time Minho emerged, she was gone. The only evidence she'd been there was her scent on his pillows and a note on the nightstand. I'm sorry. I can't do this. Minho read the note 3 times before rage and heartbreak warred in his chest. She'd run again. After everything they'd shared. After she'd admitted she loved him, she'd still run. He called Jinwoo. Find her. Now. Boss. Now. His voice was lethal. And clear my schedule. I'm going after her. Nia made it through 2 days before Minho found her. She'd thrown herself into work, accepting double shifts to avoid thinking about him, about what they'd shared, about the devastated look she imagined on his face when he found her gone. She was in the hospital cafeteria when he appeared, moving through the crowd like a dark angel. His arm was still in a sling, but nothing about his presence suggested weakness. Conversation stopped as he approached her table. We need to talk, he said quietly. Not here. Then where? His jaw was tight. Your apartment that I own? Your office that I got you access to? Or should we go back to my hotel where you ran away from me like I was nothing? The pain in his voice cut deeper than any scalpel. Nia stood, aware of every eye watching them. Fine. The roof. 5 minutes. The hospital roof was empty, wind whipping through Nia's hair as she faced him. You shouldn't have come here. You shouldn't have left. Minho's eyes blazed. After everything we shared, after you told me you've always been mine, you just walked away. Do you have any idea what that did to me? I was scared. Of what? He stepped closer, anger and hurt radiating from him. Of me? Of us? Of feeling too much. All of it. Tears streamed down her face. I was scared that if I stayed, if I let myself love you completely, I'd lose myself. That your world would swallow me whole, and I'd wake up one day not recognizing who I'd become. So instead, you'd rather live half a life? His voice softened despite his anger. You'd rather be safe and lonely than take a chance on us? It's not that simple. It is exactly that simple. He cupped her face with his good hand. I love you, Nia. I love every part of you. Your strength, your compassion, your curves, your intelligence, the way you look at me like I'm worth saving. I love you so much that living without you is not living at all. Your world is dangerous. Then I'll make it safer. His thumb brushed away her tears. I'll transition to legitimate businesses. I'll step away from anything that puts you at risk. I'll move heaven and earth to give you the life you deserve. You can't just change who you are. I can change what I do. His forehead pressed against hers. For you I'd change everything. But what I won't change, what I can't change, is how much I love you. That's permanent. That's forever. Before she could respond, gunshots cracked through the air. Minho shoved her to the ground, his body covering hers as bullets struck the rooftop structure. Men in black burst through the stairwell door. Not Minho's men. Enemy organization, here to finish what the first bullet had started. Stay down, Minho commanded, pulling a gun from his jacket with his good hand. The firefight was brief but brutal. Minho moved with lethal precision despite his injury, taking down 3 men before Jinwoo and his team flooded the roof. But in the chaos, one of the attackers grabbed Nia, dragging her toward the edge. Drop your weapon, Kong, the man snarled in Korean, or I drop her. Everything stopped. Minho's face went absolutely cold. The dangerous Mafia boss fully emerged. Let her go and I'll make your death quick. You're in no position to negotiate. Neither are you. Minho's voice dropped to something lethal. Because the moment you hurt her, there's nowhere in this world you can hide. I will find you. I will find everyone you've ever loved. And I will make sure your death takes days. The man's grip loosened slightly, fear flickering in his eyes. It was enough. Nia drove her elbow into his ribs with the self-defense moves Minho had taught her years ago. Then dropped and rolled. Minho's shot was instant and precise. The man collapsed, no longer a threat. Jinwoo's team secured the remaining attackers as Minho rushed to Nia, hands frantically checking her for injuries. Are you hurt? Did he touch you? Tell me you're okay. I'm okay, she gasped, clinging to him. Minho, I'm okay. His arms wrapped around her with crushing intensity, his face buried in her hair. She felt him shaking, this powerful man undone by the thought of losing her. I can't do this without you, he said roughly. I can't survive in a world where you're not safe, not mine, not here with me. I'm here, she whispered. I'm not going anywhere. I'm sorry I ran. I'm sorry Shoo. He pulled back to look at her, his eyes fierce. No more running. From either of us. We face things together or not at all. The attack had been orchestrated by the Lee family, Minho's biggest rival in Seoul. They'd targeted Nia specifically, having learned through intelligence that she was Kong Minho's greatest weakness. That night, in a secured location, Minho made calls that would reshape the Korean underworld. Jinwoo listened with grim satisfaction as his boss systematically dismantled the Lee organization, freezing assets, calling in debts, eliminating threats with the cold precision that had made him legendary. It's done, Minho said finally, hanging up. The Lees are finished. Their allies have abandoned them. Their operations are shut down. They'll never threaten you again. Nia sat curled on the couch, processing everything. She'd seen Minho's world in action now. The ruthless efficiency with which he eliminated threats. It should terrify her. But all she felt was protected. You destroyed an entire crime family for me, she said quietly. I'd destroy 100 more. He sat beside her, exhaustion finally showing. I meant what I said, Nia. I'm transitioning out of the illegal operations. It'll take time, you can't just walk away from this world overnight. But I'm building legitimate businesses, investing in real estate and technology. In 5 years, the Kong Empire will be completely legal. Why? Because you deserve a man who doesn't come home with blood on his hands. Because any children we have deserve a father they can be proud of. He took her hand. Because I want to be worthy of you. You already are, she whispered. You've always been. The kiss was soft this time, tender rather than desperate. When they broke apart, Minho reached into his pocket with his good hand and pulled out a small box. I've been carrying this for 4 years, he admitted. Had it made in New York before you left. Was planning to propose the night you disappeared. He opened it to reveal a stunning diamond ring. Marry me, Nia. Be my wife. Let me spend the rest of my life proving I'm worth the risk. Her breath caught. Min-ho. I know it's fast. I know we just found each other again. But I've waited 5 years, and I don't want to waste another moment. His eyes held absolute certainty. You're it for me. You've always been it. Say yes. Yes, she breathed, laughing through tears. Yes, I'll marry you. The ring slid onto her finger perfectly, and Min-ho kissed her with a reverence that made her heart ache. This dangerous, powerful man looked at her like she was his entire world. They married a month later in a private ceremony overlooking Seoul. Nia wore a white dress that hugged her curves, and Min-ho couldn't take his eyes off her. His injury had healed, and when he lifted her veil, his hand was steady. I vow to protect you, he said in Korean then English. To cherish you. To love you with everything I am. You are my heart, Nia. Today and always. Her own vows were tearful but firm. I vow to trust you. To stand beside you. To never run again. You are my home, Min-ho. My safety. My forever. When they kissed as husband and wife, cheers erupted from their small gathering. Jin-woo and the men who'd become brothers to Min-ho, Nia's colleagues from the hospital who'd become friends, family from both sides who traveled to witness their impossible love. That night, in the penthouse that was now truly theirs, Min-ho made love to his wife with a tenderness that brought tears to her eyes. Every touch said mine. Every kiss said, forever. Every whispered word in Korean said, I love you, in ways that transcended language. Fade to black. 6 months later, Nia stood in their bathroom staring at a positive pregnancy test. Her hands shook as she emerged to find Min-ho working in his study, reviewing contracts for one of his legitimate businesses. I have something to tell you, she said softly. He looked up, immediately alert to the emotion in her voice. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong. She crossed to him, placing the test in his hand. Everything's perfect. Min-ho stared at the test, his expression cycling through shock, wonder, and fierce joy. You're pregnant. We're having a baby. His arms wrapped around her waist, pulling her into his lap as his hands played possessively over her still flat stomach. A baby. Our baby. Are you happy? She asked, though she could see the answer in his eyes. Happy doesn't cover it. He kissed her softly. You've given me everything, Nia. A reason to be better. A home. And now a family. I don't deserve you, but I'll spend every day of my life trying to. You already do, she whispered, threading her fingers through his hair. You're going to be an amazing father. I'm going to be a legitimate businessman, he corrected with a slight smile. The last of the illegal operations shut down last week. From now on, the Kong Empire is completely legal. Our child will grow up knowing their father builds things instead of destroying them. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I love you so much. I love you more. His hand remained on her stomach, protective and possessive. Both of you. The months that followed were the happiest of Nia's life. Min-ho was attentive to the point of obsession, ensuring she had the best prenatal care, accompanying her to every appointment, his hand always finding her growing belly with wonder. The baby, a girl, was born on a rainy Seoul morning. Min-ho held his daughter for the first time with tears streaming down his face. This dangerous man completely undone by 7 pounds of perfect miracle. She has your eyes, he whispered, looking at Nia with so much love it hurt. She's beautiful. She's ours, Nia said, exhausted but radiant. Our impossible dream. They named her Hope, a tribute to the second chance they'd been given. The love that had survived separation and danger and fear. That night, with their daughter sleeping peacefully in the hospital bassinet, Min-ho sat beside Nia's bed holding her hand. 5 years ago, I thought I'd lost you forever, he said quietly. I thought the best I could do was watch you from the shadows, making sure you were safe. I never imagined we'd have this. That you'd come back to me. That we'd have a family. I never imagined I'd find a man who'd burn the world down to keep me safe, Nia replied, squeezing his hand. Who'd change his entire life to be worthy of me. Who'd love me so completely that living without him wasn't living at all. I told you from the beginning, Min-ho said, lifting her hand to his lips. You're mine. You've always been mine. And I've always been yours. Always, she agreed. Looking at them, the reformed Mafia boss cradling his wife's hand while their daughter slept nearby, no one would believe the journey they'd taken. The pain, the separation, the danger they'd overcome. But some loves were worth fighting for. Worth changing for. worth risking everything for. Kang Min-ho had built an empire on fear and blood, but he'd torn it all down and rebuilt it on something stronger: love, devotion, and the curvy, brilliant, courageous woman who'd seen past his darkness to the man worth saving. And Nia had finally learned that safety wasn't found in running. It was found in standing beside the one person who'd move heaven and earth to protect you. Together, they built something impossible. And it was perfect. Years passed in a blur of joy Min-ho had never imagined possible. Their daughter Hope grew into a spirited 4-year-old with her mother's warm brown eyes and her father's stubborn determination. The penthouse that had once been a cold fortress transformed into a home filled with laughter, toys scattered across Italian marble floors, and crayon drawings proudly displayed in Min-ho's office. But the past never truly stayed buried. One autumn evening, Nia was leaving the hospital after a long shift when she noticed the same black car that had been circling the block for the past week. Her instincts, honed by years with Min-ho, screamed danger. She pulled out her phone, texting Min-ho, "Someone's following me." His response was immediate. "Don't move. Security is 2 minutes away." But 2 minutes was too long. The car screeched to a stop beside her, and 3 men emerged. Nia ran, heels clicking against pavement, but they were faster. A cloth pressed over her mouth and nose, chemical sweetness flooding her lungs. The world tilted and went dark. Min-ho was in a meeting when Jin-woo burst through the door, face ashen. "Boss, they took her." Everything stopped. The room, the world, Min-ho's heart. "What?" "Nia. She was taken outside the hospital 15 minutes ago. We have footage, 3 men, professional extraction. They knew exactly where she'd be." Min-ho's carefully constructed legitimate businessman facade shattered instantly. The dangerous mafia boss emerged, cold and lethal. "Find her. Now. Mobilize everyone. I don't care what it costs or who we have to hurt. Find my wife." "There's more," Jin-woo said grimly. "They left a message. The Choi Syndicate. They want to negotiate." The Choi family. Old rivals from Min-ho's past, before he'd gone legitimate. He'd thought that chapter closed, those bridges burned beyond repair. Apparently not. His phone rang, unknown number. Min-ho answered, his voice deadly calm. "You have 30 seconds before I start killing everyone you've ever met." "Such hostility, Kong," a smooth voice replied in Korean. "Choi Sung-min, the new head of the Choi Syndicate. And here I thought you'd gone soft, playing businessman. Where is she?" "Safe. For now. Whether she stays that way depends entirely on you." Sung-min paused. "You cost my family billions when you dismantled the Lee organization, destabilized the entire Korean underworld. Did you think there wouldn't be consequences? What do you want? What's fair? 50 billion won transferred to accounts I'll provide. Your territory in Gangnam, all of it. And a public apology for the chaos you caused." Another pause. "You have 48 hours. After that, your beautiful wife starts losing pieces." The line went dead. Min-ho stood motionless, rage and terror warring inside him. Jin-woo had never seen his boss like this. Utterly still, yet radiating violence so intense the air seemed to vibrate. "Boss, get me everything on Choi Sung-min. Every property, every account, every person he's ever cared about." Min-ho's voice was ice. "And call Director Han at the NIS. Tell him I'm cashing in every favor he owes me. We're going to war." "The National Intelligence Service?" Jin-woo's eyes widened. "Boss, if you involve them." "I don't care." Min-ho turned, and Jin-woo actually stepped back from what he saw in those eyes. "I went legitimate for Nia, to give her the life she deserved. But if the past wants to come for what's mine, I'll remind them exactly who Kang Min-ho was. And still is." Within hours, Min-ho had assembled a war room in his office. Maps covered the walls, tracking every Choi property in Seoul. Intelligence flowed in from sources both legal and not, the NIS providing satellite imagery, his old contacts in the underworld offering whispers of where Nia might be held. "They'll expect you to pay," Jin-woo said, studying the ransom demand. 50 billion is pocket change to you now. I'd pay 50 times that to get her back." Min-ho's jaw was tight. But paying won't guarantee her safety. The moment Sung-min has what he wants, Nia becomes a liability. He'll kill her to eliminate the witness. "So we find her first." "We find her first," Min-ho agreed. "And then we eliminate every threat that could ever touch my family again." At the hospital, Hope was with Min-ho's mother, protected by a security detail that could repel a small army. Minho had called his daughter, keeping his voice steady as he promised Mommy would be home soon. But the fear in Hope's voice nearly broke him. Daddy, is Mommy okay? Mommy's fine, sweetheart. Daddy's going to bring her home. I promise. He kept his promises. Always. Meanwhile, Nia woke in darkness, her head pounding, wrists bound to a chair. She was in some kind of warehouse. She could smell oil and metal, hear the distant sound of traffic. Her medical training kicked in immediately, assessing her condition. No serious injuries, just some bruising from the struggle. A door opened, flooding the space with light. A man entered, mid-30s, expensive suit, predator's smile. Choi Sungmin. Dr. Kong, he said in accented English. Forgive the accommodations. This is temporary. My husband will kill you for this, Nia said, her voice steady despite her racing heart. Your husband is a businessman now. He plays by rules. Sungmin circled her slowly. The old Minho, the one who built an empire on blood. He would have come for you with an army. But that Minho is gone, isn't he? Buried under corporate mergers and legal contracts. You're wrong. Nia met his gaze directly. You have no idea what you've unleashed. Brave words from a tied-up doctor. Not brave. Factual. I know my husband better than anyone. A slight smile played at her lips despite her fear. You think going legitimate made him soft. But all it did was give him resources you can't imagine. Legal connections. Intelligence assets. Money that doesn't need to be hidden. And underneath all of it. Her voice dropped. He's still the most dangerous man you'll ever meet. You just reminded him why. Something flickered in Sungmin's eyes, doubt quickly buried. We'll see. Your husband has 48 hours to meet my demands. I suggest you pray he loves you enough to comply. Oh, he loves me enough, Nia said quietly. That's what should terrify you. Back in Seoul, Minho's network had narrowed Nia's location to 3 possible warehouses in the industrial district. The NIS had provided thermal imaging showing human heat signatures in one of them. 2 guards outside, multiple signatures inside. It's a trap, Jinwoo warned. They'll expect you to come. They'll be ready. I'm counting on it. Minho checked his weapon with practiced ease. He'd spent 5 years trying to leave this life behind, but his hand still remembered. Sungmin thinks I've gone soft. Let's show him he's wrong. Boss, you have a daughter now. A family. Is revenge worth risking? This isn't revenge. Minho's eyes were steel. This is protection. As long as Sungmin lives, as long as anyone thinks they can use Nia against me, my family will never be safe. So we end this. Permanently. The assault came at midnight. Minho's team, a combination of his own security and NIS tactical operators, hit all 3 warehouses simultaneously. The real location would reveal itself by the resistance they met. The 3rd warehouse was it. Gunfire erupted as Minho's team breached the entrance. He moved through the chaos with lethal efficiency, every bullet finding its mark. This was the man he'd been before Nia. Cold, precise, absolutely ruthless. But now he fought for something beyond power or territory. He fought for love. Inside the warehouse, Nia heard the explosions and knew. Minho had come for her. Relief and terror mixed. She trusted him completely, but she knew what this rescue meant. Blood. Death. The return of the darkness he'd worked so hard to leave behind. Sungmin grabbed her chair, dragging it toward a back exit. Insurance, he snarled. Your husband wants you back? He'll have to catch me first. But he hadn't counted on Nia's medical knowledge. She'd been working on her restraint since waking, using the chair's metal edge to fray the rope. When Sungmin yanked her up, the rope snapped. Nia drove her elbow into his throat, a strike Minho had taught her years ago, and ran. Behind her, Sungmin's curses turned to gunshots, but she was already through a side door into a maze of shipping containers. Minho heard the shots and his blood turned to ice. Nia! He ran toward the sound, Jinwoo and 2 operatives at his back. The warehouse was a labyrinth, every shadow a potential threat. Then he saw her, running toward him between containers, dress torn, face bruised but alive. Nia! She crashed into his arms and for one moment the world stopped. He held her with crushing intensity, breathing in her scent, feeling her heartbeat against his chest. I've got you, he whispered roughly. I've got you. You're safe. Behind you, she gasped. Minho spun, pushing Nia behind him as Sungmin appeared. gun raised. The shot went wide as Jinwoo returned fire. Sungmin ducked behind a container, his escape route cut off. It's over, Choi, Minho called out in Korean. Your men are dead or captured. You're surrounded. Put down the gun. You think you've won? Sungmin's laugh was bitter. You just destroyed the fragile peace you built. Every family in Seoul will know Kang Minho is back. They'll come for you. For her. For your daughter. Let them come. Minho's voice carried absolute certainty. Let every criminal in this city know, touch what's mine and I'll erase you from existence. My wife. My daughter. They're off limits. Completely. And anyone who forgets that lesson will learn it the hard way. You can't protect them forever. Watch me. The standoff ended when NIS operatives flanked Sungmin's position. He was taken alive, barely, and would spend the rest of his life in a Korean prison, courtesy of evidence Minho had compiled about his operations. But the message was sent. Kang Minho hadn't gone soft. He'd just been waiting for someone stupid enough to threaten his family. That night, after Nia had been checked by doctors and cleared, after Hope had been reunited with her mother with tears and tight hugs, the family gathered in their penthouse. Minho held his wife close, their daughter asleep between them, and felt the weight of what had happened settle on his shoulders. I'm sorry, he said quietly. Nia looked up at him, confusion in her eyes. For what? For bringing this back into our lives. For not protecting you better. For. Stop. She pressed her fingers to his lips. You saved me. You moved heaven and earth to bring me home. And you did it without losing yourself. Yes, you were dangerous tonight. Yes, you reminded the world who you really are. But you did it for the right reasons. I killed people, Nia. I went back to. You protected your family. Her voice was firm. There's a difference between violence for power and violence for protection. You've always known that difference. That's why I love you. He pulled her closer, breathing her in. I can't lose you. The thought of you in danger, of Hope growing up without her mother. You won't lose me. She kissed him softly. We're stronger than this. All of us. Together. Hope stirred between them, her small hand reaching for Minho's. Even in sleep, his daughter trusted him completely. It was a trust he'd die to deserve. The next morning, Minho held a press conference that shocked Seoul's business community. He announced a massive expansion of his charitable foundation, focusing on victims of organized crime. He pledged billions to rehabilitation programs, witness protection, and community rebuilding. I come from a dark world, he said clearly, cameras flashing. But I've been given the gift of love, of family, of a second chance. And I want to use my resources to help others find that same redemption. But in private meetings with Seoul's remaining crime bosses, his message was different. Harder. Deadly. My wife and daughter are civilians, he said in a room filled with dangerous men. They're off limits. Not just to direct action but to indirect threats, surveillance, or even rumors. Anyone who forgets this simple rule will discover that my legitimate businesses make excellent covers for less legal activities. I've gone straight, but I remember how to get dirty. And I'm very, very good at it. The message was received. Kang Minho had drawn a line in blood, and no one was foolish enough to cross it. A month later, life had returned to a new normal. Nia was back at work, though now with a permanent security detail that Minho insisted on. Hope attended the best preschool in Seoul, also heavily protected, but in ways that didn't make her feel like a prisoner. And Minho continued building his empire. Now completely legitimate, focused on technology and real estate development. But everyone in Seoul's underworld knew the truth. Cross him, and the businessman would become the monster. One evening as they prepared for bed, Nia found Minho standing at Hope's door, watching their daughter sleep. What are you thinking? She asked softly. That I'd do it all again, he said. Every hard choice. Every dark thing. All of it. Because it led me here. To you. To her. To this life I never knew I wanted. Nia wrapped her arms around him from behind. You're a good man, Minho. Not despite your past, but because of what you've become after it. I'm a monster who fell in love with an angel, he corrected. No. You're a man who learned that strength isn't just about power. It's about knowing when to fight and when to forgive. When to destroy and when to build. She turned him to face her. You're my husband. Hope's father. And yes, when necessary, you're the most dangerous man in Seoul. But that's just one part of who you are. He kissed her deeply, pouring years of devotion into the contact. When they broke apart, his eyes held that fierce possessiveness she'd first seen in a New York trauma bay. "I love you," he said roughly. "More than power. More than money. More than anything in this world. You and Hope, you're my entire reason for existing." "We love you too," Nia whispered. "All of you. The businessman and the warrior. The gentle father and the fierce protector. All of it." That night they made love with a tenderness born of nearly losing each other. Every touch was reverent, every kiss a promise, every whispered word a vow. Fade to black. 6 months later, Nia stood in their bathroom staring at another positive pregnancy test. Her hands shook as she smiled, this time with pure joy instead of fear. She found Minho in his office reviewing contracts. "I have news." He looked up immediately, reading her expression. "You're pregnant. How did you get this glow?" He crossed to her, hands finding her waist. "I noticed it 3 days ago but didn't want to say anything until you were ready." She laughed, shaking her head. "You're impossible. I'm observant." His hand splayed possessively over her stomach. "How do you feel?" "Terrified. Excited. Overwhelmed." She looked up at him. "Our family is growing again." "Our family is perfect," he corrected, then paused. "But yes, one more addition will make it more perfect." They told Hope that evening. Their daughter was ecstatic at the prospect of a baby sibling, immediately planning all the things she'd teach them. "Will the baby have my eyes or Daddy's eyes?" Hope asked seriously. "We'll have to wait and see," Nia said, pulling her daughter into her lap. "But either way they'll be loved. Just like you." "Will Daddy protect the baby like he protects us?" Hope asked Minho. "Always," he promised, his voice thick with emotion. "I'll protect all of you. Forever." And he meant it. Every word. The pregnancy progressed smoothly. Minho was even more attentive than before, if that was possible. He attended every appointment, read every parenting book again, and spent hours talking to Nia's growing belly in Korean. "You're going to be an amazing big sister," he told Hope one night as she pressed her ear to Nia's stomach. "The baby is lucky to have you." "I'm lucky too," Hope said with the wisdom of a child who'd grown up surrounded by love. "I have the best daddy ever." Minho's eyes burned as he looked at his daughter, then his wife, then the evidence of their growing family. He'd started as a man who trusted no one, loved nothing, lived only for power. Now he had everything that truly mattered. The baby, another girl, was born on a spring morning. They named her Grace, for the grace they'd been given in finding each other, in surviving, in building this impossible family. Minho held his newborn daughter with tears streaming down his face, just as he had with Hope. "Another perfect miracle," he whispered to Nia. "How did I get so lucky?" "We both did," she said, exhausted but radiant. "We found each other against impossible odds. We survived danger and separation and fear. And now look at us." He looked at his wife, at Hope standing on a stool to see her baby sister, at Grace sleeping peacefully in his arms. This was his empire now. Not built on fear or blood but on love. "I was asked in an interview last week what my greatest achievement was," Minho said quietly. "They expected me to talk about my business success. The buildings I've developed, the technology I've invested in." "What did you say?" Nia asked. "I said my greatest achievement was convincing you to love me. Everything else is just details." Years continued to pass. Hope grew into a brilliant, compassionate teenager who wanted to be a doctor like her mother. Grace was a spirited 8-year-old who had her father wrapped around her finger. And Nia and Minho's love only deepened with time. On their 15th wedding anniversary, Minho took Nia back to the hospital rooftop where they'd first confronted their feelings after she'd run from his hotel. "Remember this place?" he asked, holding her close as they watched the sunset over Seoul. "How could I forget? This is where you told me you'd change everything for me." "And I did." He turned her to face him. "But what I didn't tell you then, what I didn't fully understand, was that you changed me more. You took a man who knew only darkness and showed him light. You gave me a family, a purpose, a reason to be better. You were always better than you believed," Nia said, touching his face. "I just helped you see it. These 15 years have been the best of my life." Minho pulled out a small box. "I want to give you something." Inside was a new ring, not replacing her wedding ring but complementing it. A band of diamonds that sparkled like the Seoul skyline. 15 years. he said, sliding it onto her finger. 15 years of choosing you every day. Of loving you more with each moment. Of building this life we have. He paused. And I want 50 more. 100 more. However many were given. Nia's eyes burned with happy tears. You have me. Forever. Completely. That's all I've ever wanted. They kissed as the sun set. Two people who'd found each other in trauma and built something beautiful from the ashes of their pasts. Below them, the city glittered with life. Somewhere in that vast landscape, their daughters were safe at home, protected by security and love. Minho's business empire continued to grow, now recognized globally for innovation and philanthropy. And the underworld of Seoul gave the Kong family a wide berth, remembering what happened to those who threatened what Minho loved. But standing on that rooftop, wrapped in each other's arms, Minho and Nia weren't thinking about empires or danger or the past. They were thinking about the life they'd built, imperfect, hard-won, absolutely precious. I love you, Minho whispered against her hair. I love you more, Nia replied. Impossible, he said, pulling her closer. My love for you is infinite. Then we're evenly matched. They stood together as darkness fell and the city lights bloomed like stars. Two souls who'd collided in a hospital emergency room, who'd loved and lost and found each other again, who'd built a family from danger and devotion. Kong Minho had been many things in his life, mafia boss, businessman, survivor. But his favorite role, the one he cherished above all others, was husband to Nia and father to Hope and Grace. And he'd defend that role with everything he had, with every breath in his body, with every dangerous skill he'd learned in his dark past. Because some things were worth any price. Family, love, forever. Those were his truths now. His empire. His entire world. And as he held his wife close under the Seoul stars, Minho knew with absolute certainty that he was exactly where he belonged. Please like, share and subscribe. Don't forget to comment telling us your thoughts and views on this story.